Ahoy hoy everybody, my name is Caroline and I like to read books, so let's talk about them. Today's video is going to be a book review of Nevernight by Kristoff. For those of you who don't know, this is the story of a girl named Mia who is at a school called the Red Church, training to be an assassin, and she's such a badass. This school is kind of like Hogwarts, except instead of just learning fun magic, you're learning how to kill people, and it's really cool because their classes are based in weapons and poisons and pickpocketing and seduction and all these things that will make you into a master of killing. Mia has this really awesome ability where she's kind of friends with her shadow, and it takes away her fear and she can kind of hide herself in the shadows and stuff like that. And it's just a really awesome ability that kind of helps her to become a better assassin. There is a lot of drama and excitement in this book. At assassin school, Mia makes friends and she makes enemies, and she competes against this larger group to be the best assassin, obviously. I ended up giving this book 3 out of 5 stars because I found it really entertaining and cool to read, but there were just a couple of things that I wasn't really a fan of. My favorite thing about this book was the story itself. I think it was incredibly well balanced. There were these moments of kind of light-hearted banter between the characters that were really entertaining, but there were also moments that were surprisingly dark and scary and not at all what I really expected from this story. Unfortunately, I did find the story to be quite predictable. There were moments where I was surprised by the tone of certain scenes, but not necessarily by what transpired in them. I always felt like I could predict what was happening quite a while before it did. And while this didn't actually affect my enjoyment of the story really, it was just something that I was quite aware of throughout the book. Although I think the character development in this story was really well executed, my main problem with this book is the style of the writing. I found the writing to kind of be unnecessarily complex a lot of the times. There were a lot of similes and metaphors that were used to describe things that didn't need to be described in that depth, and they ended up just kind of confusing me because they didn't really make sense. Whilst I am a big fan of descriptive writing, I do think that this book would have benefited from using these descriptions a little more sparingly. There were events and people and places in this book that were described in almost an obnoxious amount of detail, and I just found it kind of took me away from what was happening in the book because I had to read too many paragraphs to describe what could have just been one, and I don't know if this is making sense or if it just sounds like I'm whinging about the writing, but I just think it is possible to describe too much and to kind of bore your readers with that description, and that kind of happened for me with this book. My other main problem with the writing was the narration. A lot of the world building is done through footnotes where our narrator will kind of explain something that the characters referenced in dialogue or in their thoughts or something, and this is quite a clever way to world build, but in this it just felt like info dumping a little bit because sometimes the footnote would take up like half a page, and it's just too much to read at once, especially when it could have kind of seamlessly been woven into the story and achieved the same effect. So yeah, although I really loved the characters and the story in this book, the writing did really bother me just because it was too descriptive and it kind of took me away from what was happening and just diminished my enjoyment overall. All that being said, I would still recommend this book to people because even though I wasn't a huge fan of the writing style, other people might love it and think it's really beautiful. So if you have read this book, let me know what you thought of it down in the comments section, because that's it for this video. So I upload videos Wednesdays and Saturdays, so be sure to like and subscribe and tune in on those days for more bookish goodness. Toodaloo!